you can't predict the future. All you can do is handle your business and be the person you are, and then good things happen around you.
Welcome to another episode of Adventures in Business Live. Mandi, how are we doing today?
Amani, it's the end of June. We're rocking it. I don't feel the end of the quarter pressure that I normally do. I feel like everything's been really paced out unusually. So it's not as nuts as it normally is the day before the end of the quarter. I'm feeling good, feeling spry.
Good for you. I am in heaven because it's World Cup fever, so I've been watching many games. Just finished today when we're recording. I just finished watching Brazil score in the last minute to beat Japan. So I'm in heaven.
As a lifetime soccer player, are you doing any like mental somersaults of like, oh, if you just would have done this, if you just would have done that? Like, what are you mentally coaching them? What's happening in your world?
All the time. Good ball, bad ball. Oh, you missed this person. But sometimes I just sit back and watch. But sometimes, yes, absolutely.
That's funny. We have, Scoot, I think we've talked about this before. Scoot has like sports ESP. So going to like any football or baseball game with him, he's calling everything before it happens. And like 90% of the time he's right. But soccer or football, he doesn't have that because he never played that growing up. So I feel like even like we can watch together and I don't feel so like behind the game. It actually feels fun to watch the game.
I love it. Why don't you talk about our guest for today and then we can get to having a conversation.
Okay. We have somebody really awesome. I'm super stoked. He's the current CEO of VaynerSpeakers, where he's pioneered how speakers are booked. He's led the company to become one of the fastest growing company within VaynerX. He's formerly the head of programming for Gary V's VCon. He's driven almost, you ready for this? He's driven almost $100 million in sales and booked speakers for 4,000 events. In his past life, he was an agent for CAA, where he worked with Al Pacino, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Joe Biden, and many gold medalist Olympians.
Yeah.
He's a husband.
Okay.
He's a dad to a human and a dad to a pup. We love our pup parents.
We do love our doggies, yes.
And we do. And I have personally had the privilege of seeing what an awesome speaker coach he is in action. So welcome to the stage, Zach Nadler.
Yes, we'll give you a round of applause here. It's coming. Yes.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is great. You guys are awesome.
We're excited to have you.
Mandi, we'll let you take the lead. You know I have my questions, but I'm going to let you start us off.
I know. Amani has a journal. It's like a mad scientist of like writing. He's got his journal everywhere.
Yes.
We all have our process.
We do. Well, Zach, thanks for being here. It's so awesome to see you again. We met in February at Jesse Itzler's Built to Speak event. I was blown away about your knowledge, but your coaching was just, it was life-changing for me, and I know for everybody in the room. But I want to start with VaynerSpeakers. So what is VaynerSpeakers and how did you get involved with it? And then I've got a couple follow-up questions after that.
Yeah, by all means, I'll try to keep it short. So I've been doing, booking speaking engagements for over 20 years, which is insane for me to think about. And I've been working with Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a serial entrepreneur for, it'll be 17 years in August, which is also crazy. And he approached me about the idea of doing something, and, he's disrupted other industries. And he said, the speaking industry just doesn't seem sane, right? Like there's not a lot of innovation. There's not a lot of change. What if we made it better? And so we kind of put our heads together. It took a little while, but we finally came together and said, well, if we're going to do this, let's not just do it for the sake of doing it. Let's actually try to be different. So we try to take a little bit more of a bespoke approach. We only represent about 22 speakers, right? We keep it small on purpose. We also try to look at every single event as its own event. So we really started the company off the idea that no two events are the same. You guys know this. You've been to a zillion events as well. it's not just cookie cutter. And I think people, as we're getting into more of an AI age, they're looking for less cookie cutter, and they always have been. But the industry keeps going the other direction and trying to make it more transactional. So as we built the business, we really just wanted to figure out how can we, create a more customized approach to speaking. How can we help speakers get better with what they're doing, but find their way into an event? And then how can we help events figure out what makes them unique and then bring that to life? And so it's been, it'll be 8 years this October. And it's been a lot of fun, and thankfully it's been working.
I personally love this. I know I was very vocal with you about my thoughts of speaker bureaus, and I don't think there's a planner, or Amani and I are both I'm a planner and a speaker, and Amani is a speaker. Like, I don't think there's a planner or a speaker out there that would disagree that the model needed to be disrupted. So when you have talked about in the past, your speaker, those are your customers. Your speakers are your customers. And I know a lot of times bureaus say the event planners are the customers. I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer, but can you just talk about your strategy of how the speakers are your customers?
Yeah. So we actually call the speakers our clients. And I think that the rest of the industry refers to the events as the clients. And I think that there's no right or wrong, but I think for us, it is more about just being transparent with the fiduciary responsibility. When I work with an event planner and I'm helping them with a speaker, they know which speakers are my clients, and they know if I'm helping them with someone who's not a client. But they also know that I don't get paid unless everything gets booked, right? If it's a disaster, it looks badly on me as well as my client. So I have interests that I'm protecting. And I think things fall apart a little bit when the relationship just gets blurred. It's like, who are you working for? Who are you actually trying to help? Whose interest are you looking after? And I think the industry itself has undergone a lot of change. And ultimately, greed has taken over a lot of things and made people kind of, pursue things for the wrong reason and offer support when they're not really supporting people, right? If you're just suggesting speakers because they're going to be the speakers who pay you the most money, then it's probably not the right speakers to suggest. Yeah. And I think the lack of transparency throughout the industry has eroded the trust that the speakers industry has had. And for a long time, look, I talked to a lot of people who've been doing this for a lot longer than I have. And they'll tell me, I remember opening up the yellow pages and just start calling companies, right? Or like looking through a directory, you'd be mailing CDs and no one would know how to contact a speaker. Now, there's no barrier for an event planner to contact a speaker. That doesn't mean the speaker wants to be contacted, but many do. And I think that now the role of a speaker bureau or agent has evolved, and that we actually have to have expertise. And I think for a long time, frankly, there were a lot of people who were just doing this because they were like, hey, I can make money being a middleman. I can make money by just sitting here and knowing a handful of people and knowing how to do a deal. But the reality is that if you go about it that way, why would anyone trust you long term if you're not actually going to provide them value? So ultimately, all we try to do is just add value and impact to everything we're doing, whether that's with a speaker and being strategic with how they structure their fees, their messaging that they put out there, the marketing, the way that they are seen in the environment, or with an event. We're like, hey, yes, you could book this person, but they're probably not what you want despite what you think. And that's not always a popular opinion to share, but you have to be honest. Otherwise, there is no trust that's going to be formed. And the relationship is ultimately the only thing that matters.
Yeah, walk me through that really quick, because when we first met, you said something that I don't think anybody booking speakers has said to me before, is like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you if I think somebody you want sucks. I'm going to tell you that. So walk me through that, because I think that's what's missing, this strategy, whether it is price or location or topic. Walk me through what that conversation looks like with the planner.
Well, I think ultimately, in sales, it's all about listening, not talking, right? And so ultimately, as an agent, I'm in sales, right? It's my job to sell a speaker. But what it matters to an event planner is understanding, why are you offering me what you're offering me, right? Are you listening to what I'm telling you? So a great example that I love to share is I'll talk to an event group and they'll say, well, our event this year is in Chicago. So we want to have someone from Chicago. I'm like, that's great. But does that really matter? Because ultimately you're going to bring someone in who maybe they grew up in Chicago, right? But their speech isn't about Chicago. So they're going to drop has everyone had their Giordano's pizza? They're going to drop something local, you get a clap, and then they'll move on to their presentation. But what you're doing is you're narrowing down the list of potential speakers to 2%. right? You're spending a lot of time hunting for something that doesn't really matter. So what we try to do is get down to like, what does it actually matter? Like, what are you trying to do? When somebody says we're booking 3 speakers, a $25,000 speaker, a $50,000 speaker, and a $100,000 speaker, I'm like, well, the reality is you have a $175,000 budget. What if you spend a $160,000 speaker? You can get someone for free and then someone else is 15,000. What if you don't spend all your budget? Right? What are the things you can do with it? And it's really just for me about reframing the realities. It's not telling someone something that like they've never been able to think of themselves or that they wouldn't get to eventually. It's just like, hey, I've been doing this a long time. Let me help you get to where you're going to wind up and save you the time because I've been through it before. And so it's really just, again, it comes down to transparency and honesty. I just give people the insights that I've learned over the years. And that doesn't mean that I make the decision, right? I always say like, it's my job to educate and to advocate, right? I have to educate event planners and speakers as to what the realities are in the marketplace. So then I have to advocate on behalf of either my client or the customer to get the deal done. And so by being transparent, they believe that you are advocating for their best success. And then ultimately you're doing more deals, right? You're getting to more events. You're having speakers perform and they're being positioned in a proper way, as opposed to a lot of other agents who will just plug someone in. And then afterwards, it's like, this was not a fit at all. Why did you let us move forward this? It sounded good. And it's like, well, but you didn't actually ask the right questions.
Yeah, that strategy, conversation, and that critical thinking is definitely missing, and it's everything. I'm just so grateful you guys are doing that. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's harder than it looks too.
I bet.
So
I bet. Yeah.
We're kind of reversing roles here because I want to go back. First of all, as a Massachusetts native, are you more a Boston Celtics fan or a New York Knicks fan?
Oh, there's no question about it. We are Celtics fans. My 6-year-old daughter stayed up through the last game and she watched the first half and she said, I'm a Celtics fan, but my best friend's a Knicks fan. So if the Celtics aren't playing, I'll root for the Knicks. And I was like, that's great. And I told her, I said, she went to the New York Liberty Parade when they won the championship. I said, look, we don't have a team in Boston. You could be a Liberty fan. You live here. I was like, but we're Boston fans and you know that. So yeah, there's no question.
All right. Just had to get that clarification out there. I was just curious. Just wanted to know.
I did keep that from Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a massive Jets fan. He didn't know I was a Boston fan until we knew each other for 8 years. Good. And he was like, wait a second, I didn't know this. Can we like renegotiate this deal we just did? I was like, no. It's all over. We've already put pen to paper.
Should have asked more questions. Yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
Now, is it still true that you only have your pilot's license and not a driver's license? Is that still fact?
No. I wish.
Okay, good.
I don't know where you read that, but I wish. Yes. No, I have a driver's license and I'm a licensed scuba diver, but that's about it.
Okay, good. See, these are the facts we have to get out here. I had to verify, because sometimes a fact checker can be off. Based on your experience, I have a lot of questions about speaking, but I first want to ask you about Gary V. Working with Gary V, what have been the 3 most valuable lessons you've learned while working with him?
I would say patience is a good one. Like people, I love hearing like he's an overnight success. It's like this guy's been grinding for 30 to 40 years. Like you make it sound like he did this thing yesterday. So I think patience and being patient with others is a big thing. Allowing people to kind of take the time that they need to learn, and supporting them along the way is a big thing. I think Gary does a really good job as a leader of allowing people to fail. And I think that that's a really hard thing as leaders that we do. Like we try to, create and, manipulate and manufacture a great team. It's not that easy, right? You have to hire people. You have to trust them. You have to empower them. I think what Gary does is often say like, hey, this is how I think we should do it. And if you disagree, he doesn't say like, no, we're doing it my way. He'll say, great, let's do it your way, but I disagree. And then if you fail, he's like, look, I'm not going to rub it in and say you were wrong, but now do you understand what I was saying? And I think it's a really good leadership skill. It's hard for a lot of people to do, to let go like that. But he's phenomenal. And then honestly too, just as an example, he is my favorite example, right? The first speech he ever gave, he offered to bring wine and serve it at the happy hour in exchange for stage time. But no, what speaker is doing that who is now making $250,000 per speech? And so being able to look at other speakers and say like, well, they'll be like, well, Gary would never do this. Like, not only would Gary do this, he went a step further. So I think like being able to use him as an example, especially as a business partner, has just been phenomenal. But he's a phenomenal guy. I spent so much time with him and I'm constantly learning from him. And I think it's, I'm all the better for it. And he's tremendous to have as a partner.
Okay. And next question is probably a good segue into Manny's question. If you were to meet an emerging speaker, someone who's got fees between like 5K and 10K, and they're in the market now, based on how you've already disrupted the market, what advice would you give them?
There's so much that they can do. When you're in that 5 to 10 range, that's actually the sweet spot where have no ego and just get out there, right? So I always tell speakers like that, like, it's not just about the money. If somebody's saying, I can't pay you, great, do the speech anyways, get the video, right? Find value in however you can. If you have a book, sell books, right? I've done all sorts of crazy barter deals. I think that too many speakers just hold on. They say, like, I have to be this price point, or like, I can't flex that. It's like, look at it, right? Every opportunity is unique. What is the way that you can pull value out of it? Because I think the biggest thing is getting reps and knowing what your reality is. So if you're not self-aware and you're just holding out that you're waiting for the great gig, like, that's not how it works. You got to get reps in. You got to be out there speaking as often as possible, because every time you speak, that's another chance for someone to see you who's going to book you for another event. And speakers just don't think that way. They often think like, okay, once I start doing this, if I'm good, I'm going to get booked left and right. And it's like, no. Like, it is really hard. There's more competition than ever before. And the number one thing that separates the good from the great is reps.
Got it. Yes. Mandi, back to you. I got plenty, but back to you.
There's so many. There's so many. I want to go technical with the speaking. When you were coaching all of us, and I, after my speech, I've watched this several times, you said, master the nonlinear story. I knew what you meant by that in that moment, but can you share, what did you mean by that, and why is telling a nonlinear story important?
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite little tips for speakers. And I think that personally, like, I love little loopholes, little hacks, little things that you can do, low lift, high impact. And I think too many speakers look at speaking like, I have this story to tell, so I got to start at the beginning and work my way through the story and land at the end point. And that's where it all comes together. When you do that, you're actually kind of doing yourself a disservice, right? When you take an audience through that, there's not enough drama that's being built up. There's not enough engagement. If you watch some great movies, you may not even recognize it, but at the beginning of the movie, they show you how the movie's ending without you realizing it, or something in the middle, and then you catch back up later. That's nonlinear storytelling. So rather than starting with, well, it all started one Tuesday morning and this is what happened. It's no. So here I was, this crazy thing was happening, but let me tell you how we even got there. It just helps the audience stay with you and want to know, like, how did that happen? How did that crazy moment mean what it meant? And so I think it's a really simple tool for speakers to use, because if you just figure out what a really cool inflection point was, and you start with something really interesting, everyone's engaged. They want to know what happened. So now they're with you, as opposed to just starting at a boring old beginning. And now it's like, great, where are we going? Why should I follow with you? You're telling them this is how to follow me. This cool thing happened. So I'm a huge fan of linear storytelling, and I don't think enough speakers do it, especially kind of like early speakers, because they're so focused on making sure that they thread that needle and tell that story.
I legitimately changed my entire opening for my keynote after that. I did. I started on the bike, and I was like, oh, I was so mad. I was ferociously riding through the bike path, and here's what happened the last 48 hours, all because of that. So I can say it's so valuable. Okay, another technical question. You've talked a lot about capturing the attention of the audience and then making sure they have something to think about after. I think so many times as a speaker, you're like, I want this standing ovation, which makes me cringy when somebody just wants a standing ovation, but that's just me. And they think about like their introduction, they think about the moment, but they're not thinking about the message after. So can you share that? Is there anybody out there that captures the attention and has them think about it after? Can you just expand on that?
Yeah, I think there's so many speakers that do this, and it's not always this like obvious thing where they ask and pose this question, right? This philosophical thing that you need to be considering. But I think like you guys have both been to so many events, and I think you would probably say it yourselves, the best events are the ones that they extend beyond the life of the event. It's not just great, we were there for a day and then we moved on with our lives. It's like, no. There was something that carried on afterwards, whether it was a speaker, an experience, a meeting that took place. There's something that happens afterwards, and the best events last with you longer. So I think the best speakers do that same thing, and they can help an event by doing so. So whether it's changing the way you think about your industry, right? And it can be as, apologies to the accountants out there, but it can be really boring accounting stuff. Right? Let me pose a question to you, thinking about the way you're approaching tax season, right? And it's just something that gets you thinking differently. And I think ultimately speakers are there really to either inform, educate, inspire, motivate. But when you do all that, rarely is the actionable item going to happen at the event. People need to go home and they need to do something. So you need to do all of those things, but then allow them an opportunity to do something with it. So are they going to go home with this information and then be like, great, now I can't wait to XYZ? Or now this is awesome. I really am excited because I've never thought about this and I can't wait to apply it to my business. So it doesn't matter whether it's customer service, whether it's innovation, any of these things. You just want to leave people with something they can walk home with and say, great, I can't wait to think more about this because it's going to impact me, whether it's personally or professionally.
Yeah. Who's doing it well? Who's of the speakers that you're seeing, like who's doing that really well right now?
Honestly, I think that's something that all our speakers do. You know, I got a really great compliment the other day. We had just announced a new speaker. He's the former CEO and the co-chair of a company called Spin Master. So for those of you out there with kids, he's responsible for Paw Patrol. He's responsible for Bakugan. He's responsible for kinetic sand and all the places that get lost in your house. You know, it's Gabby's Dollhouse, and it's all of these amazing toys. And he has a book coming out about being different. And we announced him as a speaker, and I got a call from an agency asking me questions about him. And they said, you know, when you guys announce someone, they come with something to talk about. They're not just like, this is a guy who did a thing. It's like, no, they have something to talk about. They have a message. And to me, that's what it's all about. If you have a message, you're leaving people with something to think about. So it's someone from, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk is going to get you thinking differently about whether it's AI or marketing or the way you lead teams. Right. And then we work with, you know, folks on the earlier side of things. You know, we work with someone named Ariana Luderman. She was on her deathbed and then wound up becoming the first and the fastest and youngest woman to complete 6 Ironmans on 6 continents in a year. Right. Either side of that, right? You're talking about $15,000 to $250,000, but they both have a really distinct message that gets you to think about. With Ariana, she gets you to ask the question, like, what do you really want to be doing with your time? Like, are you telling your own story? Or are you letting your story tell you what's going on? And with Gary, he just pushes the boundaries of what you even thought possible, whether it is about marketing or innovation or any of these areas. And I think that as long as you are, whether you're, you know, honestly being deliberately asking and posing a question, how are you going to do this? Or you are just opening people's minds to what's possible. Most great speakers do this. And I think the ones that really don't have a sustainable longevity in the business are the ones who come out. They just say, here's what my book is about. It's like, no. If the book is not the start of the conversation, if it's the whole conversation, then what's the point of even being there in the first place?
Yeah.
Got it. Well said. What's up, everybody? It's Amani coming to you. I want to share with you information about my new group coaching program. If you are a 9-to-5 creative, meaning you work a 9-to-5, but you also have some artwork that you want to monetize and get out there, you could be a musician, an author, a painter, whatever. You're a 9-to-5 creative and you want to monetize your artwork, come and talk to me. You can go to amaniexperience.com/call, fill out the form. I'd love to talk to you about some in-person or virtual group coaching. Thank you very much. I'll see you all soon. I want to go back and I'll bring us forward again. If you could only keep 3 albums from your prize vinyl collection, what 3 would those be?
Good question.
Wow. There's some like obscure ones. There's an old Vanilla Fudge album that no one likes when I play, but I'm obsessed with it. And and honestly, we're talking about there's a Yardbirds album with Jeff Beck of the Yardbirds that it's called Ola. He plays like an Elvis Jailhouse Rock cover. These are albums that I listen to at home and on vinyl that I will not listen to on Spotify. So definitely those 2. And then there's another one that is kind of one of has some like personal memories for me, is a Dwayne Allman anthology. And he plays on Aretha Franklin's version of The Wait, which was the lullaby I used to sing to my daughter to put her to bed. So that one in particular has some core memories for me. But these are, again, all albums I would never put on, like listening to my headphones on Spotify. Only it's like, you know, I see your keyboard behind you. Yeah. I'm sure you've got something like that as well.
Okay. So then my part 2 is we're at Fenway Park.
Yep.
And Zach is coming up to bat. What song is playing?
Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. This is a conversation that I have had many times. Big fan. And it's actually, you know, it's funny because Mandi, when we were in Atlanta, we talked about this, how like when you're starting a speech, people think like you walk out there, you stand in the middle of the stage, take a deep breath, and that's when it starts. Like, no. As soon as you start walking, when the audience sees you, that's when it starts. And so like, you think about like Mariano Rivera, look, I'm a Red Sox fan, but when he would come out to Enter Sandman, like the environment changed. So like, I think there is something to that. And I think it's fun. I asked my whole team, I was like, you guys aren't speakers, but what would your walkout music be? Yeah. And I think Stranglehold, just every time I hear, I mean, it's like a 7-minute song, so you're getting like 10 seconds of it, but it gets such a vibe that like it brings you out. And I think it sets the mood, and that's what you want to do as a speaker. And I think the fun ones do it where it's like something unexpected, not just high energy, but actually something unexpected. And then they play off the song. So I think there's really fun ways of doing that. But yeah, there's definitely Ted Nugent Stranglehold.
Okay. And then the third part of the question would be, and you kind of answered it, but I'm curious, like, as a DJ and a speaker, I bring the music to my presentation. What is your thoughts on that? Who have you seen do it well? What are like some ideas that you'd love to see implemented?
Well, yeah, this was going to be my question for you, because I think, as we talk about this, I can't tell you how often I hear now is we want something experiential. We want more than just a speech. And I think that the people who do that well have a much better added edge and advantage than others. I think there are plenty of people who do it poorly, or they're doing it for the sake of doing it. But I think bringing music, bringing something to life is really fun. So years ago, I used to work with Diana Nyad. She swam from Cuba to Miami. She's a great speaker, but when she speaks, it's more of like a one-woman show. She gets up there and she used songs as a way of tracking how far she was going. So in parts of her speech, she's literally singing to the audience, right? Mandi, who mentioned Jesse Itzler, he brings a DJ with him. His DJ just adds value and it elevates the entire experience, because, he'll be talking about New York City, and New York will be on in the background, or Empire State of Mind, like something cool like that will come together. And then, look, there's speakers. Dan Thurman, phenomenal speaker. He flips upside down and does half the presentation upside down on a podium. It's very different, right? Eric Wall, who will paint on stage with the audience. These are really cool things that are different. And I think that there's a time and place for everything. Standard lectures are far fewer than they used to be. When I started in this industry, it was very common. Do you need a lectern? Right? Rarely do I hear that anymore. What I think is even better is, do you have any slides? And they say no. Because if you can capture the attention without slides, right, they become a crutch. And I think that audiences are like, look, I'm sick and tired of you talking to me, and all I'm doing is reading the slides that are saying the same thing you're saying to me. If that's all you're doing with your slides, don't even use them. And I always challenge speakers. If you think you need slides so badly, give a speech without slides. It's actually much easier. It's way better. Use the slides as punctuation, as a punchline. If I've worked with a football coach, a very successful football coach with great stories, and he was just like, I can never remember where I want to go next. So we literally just built 4 slides for him. That way he tells a story, click. Oh, I remember this player. Let me tell you a story about this. And it all comes together, but it was just an image. So I think if you're going to do that, it should just be simple. It should have a lot of brand, accent and value to it. But I think that anytime you can get creative with how you're presenting, whether it is through music, comedy, movement, Magic Johnson walks out into the audience 99% of the time, right? If you have something like that, it becomes different. And these days, that's what event planners want. Am I right, Mandi?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. No more death by PowerPoint. Okay. I love that. I have a quick sales question though, Mandi. I know you're going to flip the script, but I have a quick sales question for you. So you have 20-ish of exclusive speakers, and then you've got your database of like 1,500 non-exclusive. With the exclusive, 15,000, right?
It's crazy. And that probably was 1,500 10 years ago. That's how crazy it is.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So with the 20 though, it's a lot to ask somebody to be exclusive with you. So I'm just going to pick 2. Like, what are the sales stories behind securing Jesse Itzler and securing Will Guidero as like having exclusives with them? And I don't know if you're still exclusive with Will, but how did you secure them? What was that sales process like?
These are 2. I wish I could say I told you to pick these 2 because they're great stories. So Jesse is someone who I met probably 2010. Something like that. I'll never forget. I told him this recently. I remember meeting him at the U.S. Open. He was friendly with 2 of my colleagues, and he showed up at the U.S. Open, but it looked like he ran to the U.S. Open, which like I wouldn't put it past him. And then I asked him, he goes, no, I probably biked. I was like, okay, because that's more normal. So I met him, but like at the time, like he was a super successful guy, super interesting. He had just written Living with a Seal. And I was like, this guy's amazing. And when I started VaynerSpeakers, a really close confidant of mine, said, you should check out Jesse Itzler. And I was like, I know Jesse. He has no interest in speaking. And he had just started speaking. And when he did it as a favor for a friend, and he had too much fun doing it. And so when I reached out to him, I looked on his website and he has pictures of him on stage. And I was like, okay, we got to have this conversation. So he was like, come down to Atlanta. We'll go to a Hawks game. So we wound up going to a Hawks game. It was the first Luka, Trae Young game, first game of their careers. It was like a 30-point comeback at the end of the game. It was unbelievable. But he said to me, he goes, I don't want to talk business tonight. Let's just have fun. I want to get to know you. Tomorrow morning, come over. We'll talk business. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
We start talking. He goes, so with that said, tell me your whole story. He's like, don't skip anything. I want to hear it all. Like you've met Mandi, Jesse. This is very Jesse of him. We start talking and Amani, within the first 30 seconds, I'm telling him about my first internship at NYU. And he's like, wait, what was the guy's name? I'm like, Michael Goldberg. He was like, that guy was my lawyer. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He was like, yeah, he was my lawyer while I was selling Go New York Go and doing all the sport. I was like, so it was like kismet right out of the gate. Yeah. And we, honestly, I'll never forget this. I started the company October 1st. We got together October 20th. It's a Wednesday night. I went out for my first date with my wife that Friday. And so Jesse always reminds me that too. But it was a great story. And I think Jesse is someone who, I don't think he'd mind me sharing this. Like he's told me before, like he signed with me because of Gary, but he stayed with me because of me. And that was really powerful because I think he saw what we do and he's someone who's never had an agent before, but he trusts us because he knows that we are stewards of his brand. And then similarly, this was one of the greatest compliments I've ever received. Will was actually booking Gary for an event. Will has this event in New York called the Welcome Conference. He just announced it a few weeks ago. It's phenomenal. It sells out in like 12 seconds. It's really unbelievable. They fill up Lincoln Center. And so he wanted Gary to speak at the event one year. So he reaches out and is telling me that he wants, to book Gary. And it didn't start off that great because he says, hey, it's, how's it going? This is Bogadir. I'm like, hey, it's really nice to meet you. He goes, we've met before. And I was like, oh, this is not a great sign. I've already, putting my foot in my mouth. Okay. Yeah. Don't remember that. So, okay. So then we work together and we get Gary involved. And that's awesome. So this is like, I think it's June when this happens. And Gary was speaking at the event in September. You fast forward and Will has his book coming out. I get a phone call from his literary agent in August. And he says, Will's got this book coming out. And he asked if you'd be open to representing him. Do you want to have a conversation with him? I said, I don't know enough about him, but like send me a video and I'll set up a call. So he sends me the video and I watch the video and I'm like, oh man, this guy's great. Now I'm the first to tell you, I did not think Will was going to be as good as he has been, right? He did 115 talks 2 years ago, 93 talks last year. He has over 70 talks in the books already this year. And we're already like 25, 30 events into 2027. I'd never anticipated that. I don't think Will did either. But we talked and we had a really great conversation. And I was very honest with him. It's like, here's what I think we need to do to be successful together. And we had this conversation. And then ultimately, he wound up confirming that he wanted to sign with me at his event when I brought Gary over there. And cool. I said, how did this all come together? He goes, well, I like the way that you were dealing with Gary with me. Like I was on the other side of the table and I thought, if this is how he helps someone book a speaker, that's who I want supporting me in my speaking. Yeah. And so it was such a great compliment. I wish everyone could experience that because it's one of those things where it's like, you never know where that next client is going to come from. You never know what that next conversation is going to lead to. And it was a really great example. And I love telling that story to anyone and everyone who will listen to it because I think it's really profound because you can't predict the future. All you can do is handle your business and be the person you are. And then good things happen around you.
Yeah.
It's a good business lesson too. Even though you have leverage and you're in a position of power, you don't have to be a jerk. You can still make everybody else around you feel good and pump everybody up so they want to perform for you. I think that's a great business lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's something to leaving it on the table, leaving something on the table. And I think having an extended relationship rather than milking for every penny you can. But yeah, I always say like part of the fun of starting my own company is I only get to work with the people I want to work with. So if somebody's a jerk, I'm like, well, that was fun, but moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's time for Flip the Script. So during this segment of the show, we let you ask both myself and Mandi a question. Any question is allowed. Nothing is offline. What is the question? Who do you ask that question to first?
I think that I'm gonna change up my question a little bit since you kind of hit me with it earlier, Amani. So I just got back from Cannes Lion in France. Ooh. And this is a event unlike any other. We were talking about it on site. I think it may be the most 6- and 7-figure activations in any one place at any one time. and we were having trouble coming up with another. What was fascinating was a lot of the conversation was around IRL, not URL, experiential, right? Like we're going against AI by putting people together. It's like all these ideas that frankly, I have a feeling the two of you would agree with me saying, we've been saying this forever.
For years.
This is nothing new, right?
Yeah.
So suddenly the conversation is becoming part of the zeitgeist. So I would posit to you, like, what does that mean for the future of the industry? In a world where everything's becoming more online, everything is more transactional. We lived through COVID where everything was virtual. Now, as we're coming together and being more experiential, how is that going to actually impact the industry? How is that going to move things forward, both from an event planner standpoint, as well as a presenter, Amani?
Okay. I think what we're going to see moving forward is more intimate events, so smaller in size, maybe a little bit longer in length. There'll be different activations where it's less about, you'll have some learning there, of course, but it's more about different activations or activities to get to know the people there. And then you're going to build community around it so it lasts pre, during, and post. And there'll be lots of music too.
What do you think, Manny? Do you agree with that?
I agree, and I think I'll push it a little bit further. Is that I think we have to really look at making a macro event a micro event. So if your event's for 10,000, how can I make it feel like there's just 10 people? And it's how you breathe through it, right? Like I leave the ballroom. Where are the conversations I can have in the foyer? What is happening in the bathroom that provokes interaction? Like as I'm going down the escalator, like you really have to curate those in-person moments and find different ways for people to interact, like better than an activation. Like you have to really stimulate, whether that's like table topics or signs on lollipops or like literally like appealing to all the senses. I think it has to go beyond the ballroom. And I think that's going to change for speakers too. Like the conversations speakers have are going to be experiential in terms of stimulating the senses too, because you want them to interact in all these different places. But I'll say in my world, I've been doing the last 3 years curated small top client events where we don't take any more than 20 customers, and they sell out. They don't sell out because they're free to my customers.
Invite only, right?
Yeah, it's invite only. People are knocking down the doors to sponsor it, and we only take a certain amount of sponsors because we want the sponsor to client ratio to be right. We don't want anybody to feel oversold. And just in my own experience in the last like couple years, that small curated event, I think is where we're going to see more and more for sure.
Yeah, I think you're both on it. I think the intimacy is something we're all after. And I think the hardest part is events want to grow because that's when you make money. So it's scaling that intimacy that I think is the issue. But I could not agree with you both more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think big events are awesome. I think we should continue to have these huge events. And within that umbrella, how do we make it feel small for everybody there? For the people that want to, have that more intimate experience. So it doesn't, you can still grow your event, like get your registration up for sure, but then have those micro moments in there for the attendees.
Friends, I have a huge favor to ask. Did you know that when you subscribe to our podcast, it doesn't cost you a thing? It is a simple and easy click, whether that's on YouTube or whether that's on this platform. You just click the subscribe and then the next episode automatically shows up in your feed, so you don't have to go looking for it. And it helps us tremendously to show that we have more subscribers, because then it shows up in more people's feeds, and then we can get the amazing word of adventures in business from our spectacular guests out into the world to help more and more people. So if you can, like right now, take a couple seconds to click subscribe, either on YouTube or on this platform that you're listening to, that would mean the world to Amani and I. Thank you.
My last question for you is, if we go back to when you finished at NYU, so you're just walking across the stage and you meet younger version of yourself, what advice would you give young Zach based on everything you've learned so far?
Wow. So it's funny because you say walk across the stage. I didn't even go to graduation because I was working.
I figured it. Figuratively, yes.
Yeah. So it's actually, I thought a lot about this. I don't have regrets. I don't think there's anything like that. But I think, one thing I would say is my mom, I'll give her some credit here, right? She used to always say, like, why don't you have more photos with these people? And I'm like, I don't want to take photos with them. Like, for me, they look at me differently because I'm not the guy taking photos with them, right? But now looking back, like I have so many memories, and this was pre-iPhone, digital camera. Like I wish I had more photos of some of the things I was doing. And so whether it was me taking the photos or making sure I took photos with people, the photos I have are so near and dear to me. But I would tell them like, hey, don't take it for granted. You're going to have a great career ahead of you, but document it all because it's going to be worthwhile. And then the other thing I would definitely say is one day you're going to meet a guy named Gary, and he is going to tell you all sorts of crazy shit. And ultimately, listen to everything he says. So at this point now, my wife tells me, she says, if Gary tells you to do something, invest in something, whatever it is, just do it. I'm like, at this point, it's a little late in the game for that. Yeah, I should have been a lot earlier on a lot of cool things.
Cool. I love it. I love it.
We should recreate your graduation ceremony. You're on so many stages. It could totally happen.
Maybe,
like play the song, put you in a category.
We'll see.
It could totally happen.
Yes. We'll wait for Mandi to come back because there's a little bit internet issue there. But like, I'm just curious, like where would you like to see the speaking industry go? What's the biggest change you want to still make happen in the speaking industry?
I think ultimately it's something that we can't control. I think ultimately, like whether it's event planners, speakers, bureaus, anything like that, the industry is going where it's going. And I think that AI is coming and it's disrupting already. But I think ultimately, I think to me, there's been a lot of like speaker manufacturing camps, right? Pay us $20,000 and we'll help you get paid all this money. It's like everyone's just looking for that quick hit, that quick fix. And I think that there is some fatigue happening with that. And I also think there's issues with what people are trying to get away with. And people who aren't that successful are trying to sell success, which is another problem. So I think for me, it's really more about like putting in the time and energy and effort to actually hone your craft. The speakers that I work with who are the best are speakers who not started from nothing and suddenly hit fame. They're speakers who have been doing it, working hard, building a career and a business for themselves, and then being able to share that. And I think that's something that needs to happen. And we've lost. I think people just kind of expect more. And I don't think it's any one generation, but it's kind of like this sense of entitlement that we see in the workforce, just like you see it on stages. But I think at this other side of it, there are great speakers out there that would never have succeeded in another time, whether it's because of social media, because of technology, whatever it might be, that are now getting an opportunity. So I'm really excited about what the future holds. And I think that, there's now more speakers who are getting paid to speak than ever before, but there's also fewer speakers who are uber successful because there's a niche for everyone. Everyone's got to pick and choose their focus, their success, what that looks like. And I think that finding those people opportunities is the biggest thing. So I'm really excited about what that looks like moving forward because I think that we've kind of just scratched the surface of it.
Love it. Okay, you're back, Mandi. Go for it.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I'm back.
We missed you.
Oh, I missed you guys. The screen froze at a great point where everyone was laughing. They were cackling with their heads back. It was awesome. I want to ask 2 more questions. I want to know what made the Henderson Hospitality Summit so inspiring and unforgettable.
All right, that was a really cool one. So that started with an email. And I've gotten to know the women down there at Henderson Library super well. They do like book reads, right? It's a library. So the staff itself does reads. And they read Will's book and they loved Unreasonable Hospitality. So then they reached out and they were like, first they teed up one of their colleagues. They said, you have to be the one to reach out. So she reaches out and she sends this really adorable note. And it is just like, we'd love to have you, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is so great. We love it. And I said, and Will said to me, he goes, I doubt we're ever going to be able to do anything with them, but we just be like awfully nice to them. I was like, yeah, I'm nice to everyone, but of course. So I go back to them and I'm like, look, we would love to make this work, but obviously there are certain restraints we have, but let's try and figure out what's possible. And I think that I go into every conversation like that. It's about how can we make this happen, not what are the ways that we can all say no together. Right. So when I went in with like that, it became something really special out of the gate because they were like, we're going to listen. We're going to listen to what you're saying and we're going to come back to you. And they came back with a great proposal and with a video from like all of the constituents of Henderson, from like postal workers to the library staff, to the judge, to the guys who run the restaurants downtown. Everyone came together and they put this really sweet video together. And we looked at the opportunity. They listened to everything I said. And it was not a typical event for Will, but we said, look, if X, Y, and Z lines up, we time it with the book launch and all these different things. This is like, it's like a Good Morning America segment brought to life. And so we made it all happen. We went down there and seeing not just it come to life, but the way the entire community in this small town in Kentucky came together was unlike anything I'd ever seen before, right? You guys have been to your fair share of events. This wasn't walking into a expo center, right? This wasn't walking into a ballroom at a hotel in Vegas. This was unlike anything I'd ever seen. And the high school was there supporting it. They had seniors there on site, right? They had all the local restaurants and, going as far as Lexington and Louisville, we had sponsors coming in and doing things. They brought other speakers in, someone who had moved to Charleston, but was from the area originally. There was everything you could possibly imagine. They really brought their whole community together. And so that doesn't happen all that often. So it was a pretty special experience.
That's amazing. And a masterclass on how to get something done that you didn't think was possible. It's beautiful. I love that.
It was a lot of fun.
You've given us a lot of time today, and you give all of us time otherwise outside of here. How can we give you something back? How can we support you? How can we lift you up, whether it's you personally or whether with VaynerSpeakers?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if you need a speaker, VaynerSpeakers.com. It's that simple. But ultimately, we try to also be useful and productive for speakers. Because what we realized early on was our audience is not just event planners, right? Our audience is also people who are trying to get better and they want to see great speakers. And we've been blessed that we've curated a good roster. People like the speakers that we work with, and we have a particularly good eye for talent. That doesn't mean that everyone's a huge star. It means that people have good messages. So we also produce a lot of content for people. So I would definitely urge you, look at all of our socials, follow me on LinkedIn. We produce a lot of content to help speakers, help them understand how to get better, things that are happening in the industry. We also do things and present resources for event planners, because I think that, Mandi, I'm not going to ask you how many events you've worked because I know it's going to be an enormous number. Not everyone is that lucky. And it's just like speakers, event planners need reps too. So we try to help them and just distill the information we've learned along the way. And so, I would say follow us on socials, come ask us questions, let us know what we can do to help you. But when you do need that speaker for an event, let us know and we're there to help.
Awesome. And I can say, I'm going to give a shout out because I've connected Zach to a couple different people, and every single one of them are like, oh my God, Zach's amazing. Like they feel like it's a masterclass of having a conversation with you. And I am trying to send whatever business I can your way, because you do make it so easy. So I can definitely
appreciate that.
I lied. I have one final question. I lied. I just thought of this. With your vast experience in talent management, either through entertainment or speakers, a dream of Amani's is to have Babyface as a guest on our podcast. What should he do? What?
How did you just think of that?
I don't know. I was looking at him. I was like, I'm asking him the Babyface question.
That's good. You're going to have to get creative, right?
Okay.
But I know you're a creative guy, so that shouldn't be hard. I would say look at, does he have a book coming out? Sorry, my dog's getting excited about this question too.
Good.
If he's got a book coming out, a new album, something he's promoting, that's when you strike. Not right when it comes out, but like 6 months beforehand. Reach out to manager, publicist, agent, lawyer, anyone you can find. And reach out and don't just say, how can I help you? Say, here are specific things, short and sweet, that I can do, including my podcast. Here's how I'm going to help you. We're going to buy books. We're going to announce this, whatever it's going to be. And you'd be surprised at how often that gets hits when you're direct and helpful and not asking people, hey, can you do the work for me so that I can help you? It goes a long way.
Good advice.
Thank
you for asking, Mandi. Yeah.
I wish I could say, here's his number. I don't know him. My wife says I have a story for every celebrity. So this is the one I don't.
Yes.
That's a good one.
If you meet him, but that's
we hadn't thought about the lawyer. We hadn't thought about the lawyer yet. That's my takeaway. Yeah, okay. That's good.
Everywhere.
That's good.
I love it. Well, we wish we need to have you back because there's more questions I have on my list, but we only got through about a quarter of them. So just thanks for the expertise, the advice, and the wisdom you share with us. We love that you're doing things differently for speakers like Mandi and myself. So just keep doing the thing. And we appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Back anytime. Round of applause for Zach real quick. We'll put you in the green room. Stay there real quick. All right. Yes. Okay, Mandi, great show. Thank you very much to Zach for appearing. Make sure if you're watching or listening to rate, review, and subscribe on the platform that you're watching or listening. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. And with that, we will see you again next time for another episode of Adventures in Business Live. Bye. Bye, everyone. Peace out.